Welcome into Inside LAFC podcast. More good news to talk about as LAFC defeat the San Jose Earthquakes at BMO Stadium. Olivier Giroud makes his debut. It's all happening. I am Max Bretos. To help me break it all down, the one and only Stephen Beitashour, who during this League's Cup campaign, I had a game at Dick's Sporting Goods Park between the Colorado Rapids and FC Juarez of Liga MX. And lo and behold, middle of the game, he didn't wait till halftime. While in the middle of the game, tapped me on the shoulder to say hello. But I was so thrilled to see him. And I was a professional. I said, well, give me a couple seconds. And then I gave him a hug. It was great to see you, Beta, in person.
I was trying to see if you'd break character, man. What a professional you are. You didn't break character. You saw me, you smiled, and you said, 1 second. Yes. I'm doing this thing. So it was good to see you, though.
I actually gave you the middle finger. It wasn't this one.
Was it the middle finger? I saw a finger. I was just, I was distracted. The backdrop behind you was the field. So
yes, I made that up. I did see Beta, but he did wait for a good moment, and then he came back later after the game. So yeah, it's great to catch up.
Yep.
We have a lot to get to, so we'll catch up more a little bit later over coffee, or maybe at Persian Square, our place once again.
They've been asking where we're at. They're trying to get us back, Max.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. We can make it all happen.
Yeah.
We also have Julien Laurens, who is one of the contributors for ESPN FC. He's going to join us later. He is a French journalist. He has a hit podcast with Gab Marcotti, and he is going to talk about the impact in France of not just Olivier Giroud, but Julien Laurens. And we'll gauge that because this is a big deal across the pond as well. So we'll get to all of that. But first things first, Beta. The San Jose Earthquakes, who were like the Cinderella story coming in to this matchup last night. This was kind of like their Super Bowl because, they're going to try and make the postseason, but they struggled in MLS. They had a good campaign. They knocked out Chivas. They knocked out Necaxa to make it. So this was a team in form, and LAFC make it to the Elite Eight. I'm using the NCAA tournament terminology because I think maybe it'll get a few more people into it. They're at BMO Stadium and did it. It was a struggle for a little bit, but really got things going and ended up winning 4-1. And LAFC just look, regardless of what's thrown at them, regardless if it's a big boy or if it's a minnow, if it is at home or away, LAFC keep delivering.
Yeah, it was a good matchup. And you're right. Regular season, I think everyone knows San Jose has been struggling this year, almost eliminated from playoff contention. They fired their coach recently, and Ian Russell has taken over and done a fantastic job. But that last game in Leagues Cup, it's kind of given them a rebirth against Necaxa. And that was the best I've seen them play in, years. They looked so good that game. I was like,
Necaxa game.
The Necaxa game. I was like, what team am I?
I called Necaxa, and they're a good team. They have a guy, Paradela, the number 10, who they call him down there Paradona because he's got he's not Maradona, but he's really good. They're a good team. And they got Eva Longoria. They have a lot of money coming in soon. This is a big club in Mexico.
It's a big club. It's a good team. And San Jose won 5-0. So I'm like, man, this is going to be exciting. San Jose is coming to LAFC. Obviously regular season aside, you're probably not too worried about them, but their last matchup, they look good. And then LAFC just shows the caliber that they're at, man. They're so good. They're flying. And now we talk about the depth that LAFC has. You look who's coming off the bench. It's just remarkable. So a very good game, super entertaining, both ends. Even San Jose had some chances. Lloris had a couple good saves that I think it was 2-1 at the time that could have evened it out. Then who knows? It's anybody's game. So it was an exciting game and fun for all the fans to watch.
Yeah, and we encourage everyone to come. I don't know if we'll have another game at BMO Stadium. We'll talk about what's next, but in all likelihood, and things have gone wacky in this tournament, so never say never. We'll see if there's another game at BMO Stadium. Come on out. It's another opportunity for LAFC to win a trophy. Quique Oliveira scored in the 17th minute. Then Hernan Lopez got a really savvy little equalizer. That was a score at halftime. Denny Bouanga added 2, including one from a penalty spot. I wanted to get this stat beforehand. I didn't get it. I apologize, but I believe Denny Bouanga has never missed a penalty. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Denny Boy has never missed a penalty in his
For
LAFC
LAFC.
career.
For LAFC,
Yeah,
yes.
I'm sure he's missed a penalty somewhere.
Yes.
What's your penalty record, Beta?
In the pros, I'm 1 for 1. 100%. With LAFC, 2018 Open Cups, what was it, semifinal at Houston.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yes.
So, and then you never got another chance, but that's good because you maintained your perfect record.
Perfect record. Yeah, defenders usually don't take penalty kicks unless we go into penalty shootouts. And, back then there weren't too many opportunities to go in penalty shootouts, maybe in the tournament in the MLS Cup. But yeah, I made my one and only, and so I'm 100%.
Well, if Leagues Cup was around, you'd have probably taken more. And that's another interesting point about LAFC is there's a lot of these games going to penalty shootouts, but LAFC in their 4 games, they've not gone to a penalty shootout and haven't really come close. So they've, obviously they beat San Jose, they beat Austin 2-7. I'm sorry, they did go to the penalty shootout against Vancouver. So they did lose that penalty shootout. That'd have been your opportunity, Beta. And then they beat Club Tijuana 3-0. But they had that one bad performance, which they were allowed after they got the victory over Cholos, which put them in a situation where they were advanced out of the group. They finished second in their group. They played the first place team, Austin FC. And because they see, I don't know if they seed the teams based on last year's supporter shield.
Yeah.
So any team that LAFC finished ahead of, they will host. But I think that list is very short, with the exception of the Rapids, I believe. I think everyone else they would have to travel to. So we'll see. The Rapids are there. They're in the quarterfinals. We'll talk about the tournament as well. So 3 big wins, the loss to Vancouver, and LAFC have plugged along. And it feels, you've been in many tournaments. Once you get, early stages, it's hard. Everyone wants to get excited, but maybe it's hard to be focused in on it too much. Because we have to win 7 games. Well, now LAFC have gotten 4 games under their belt, and they know if they win, 3 more, they win it. They win 2 more. They get to the final. They go to the CONCACAF Champions Cup. If they win 1 more, they get 2 shots at the CONCACAF Champions Cup. So how does things change once you're a competitor and you're the back end of a tournament where you see the finish line in sight?
Playoff format is completely different than regular season. A lot goes involved. You need some luck. You need some rhythm. You obviously have to have availability. If you have a bad break and one of your main players gets hurt, it's tough to do well in the playoffs. So right now, I think LAFC is flying, right? Guys are healthy. They're actually getting more players coming in, like Olivier. And, it's a good problem to have. We spoke about this in the past. But once you get to playoffs, now it's about managing games. Maybe you don't need to go overexpose yourself if you're winning 1 or 2-0. Now it's be a little bit more conservative. This game, we saw Steve Cherundolo put in a 3-4-3, which, I don't think I've seen yet from him. We've seen the 4-3-3, obviously very traditional LAFC formation. We've seen the 3-5-2. So it was interesting to see the 3-4-3 out there, and it worked well, right? You have 1 less midfielder and you have 1 extra attacker. So I liked it. They look good, but we'll see. It's moments like that where the coach has to tinker with things because, again, playoff format is very different than regular season format because it's do or die. You lose, there is no tomorrow.
I thought that formation really helped Eduardo Atuesta, who picked up that penalty. He was pinging it around. I thought it was one of his better performances too, and they were able to distance themselves in LAFC. No banana peels, no slipping on the banana peels, as they say. They move on. Look, people we were in the media area, and I was going to go, are we winning this game? And I think most people normally say, San Jose at home, no brainer. But, that Necaxa win, the fact that it's a tournament, the fact that you knew the Earthquakes were putting everything in it, people were concerned. And LAFC pushed through. And I know the discussion about not winning trophies will come into view when you look at the last 2 years. But this team, when they make a tournament, they usually get to the business end. They do. MLS Cup playoffs last year. CONCACAF Champions League last year. They've got to finish the job, but most teams don't get this far. And I think it's a nice warm comfort that LAFC, once they get in the tournament, U.S. Open Cup this year, they're in the semifinals later this month. We'll see if they can win that trophy. But as fans, you got to love this. And as teams, they're really locked into this tournament. So whatever the coaches are saying, they're good at this. I mean, it's almost I know the trophies. I think the trophies will come, but never leaving a tournament early.
I think it's very important that that's the mindset, right? Don't go into a tournament, get knocked out in the first or second round. They're making deep runs. They're going to the finals or very close to it. So you have to give credit to Steve Trundle and that staff, because it's a different game plan when you're planning for the playoffs. Again, I mentioned it before. Regular season, playoffs, completely different mindsets going into those. It's do or die with the playoffs. Regular season, okay, we lost this week. Let's learn from it. Let's get better next week. But we also talked about it maybe a month or two ago on the podcast, was how many of these tournaments that are coming up? You have MLS Cup, you have Supporter Shield, you have Open Cup, Leagues Cup. There's a lot of tournaments. How many of those can you win? And what would be, dignified as a successful year?
And what did you say?
I said, look, they got to get one. I know fans want all four. Look, everybody has the right to dream, no problem. But being realistic, like if you get one of those, look, you win Open Cup, you're going to be thrilled because you've never won it for LAFC. You win Leagues Cup, you're going to be thrilled. You've never won it for LAFC. And both of those get into Champions League. You win MLS Cup. Come on, that's at the top, right? Everyone's going to be thrilled, even though you just won it 2 years ago. Maybe Supporter Shield you can complain about being the regular season champion, which I think is the hardest of the four, because there's no luck involved to be the best team throughout 34 games. But what are you going to complain about if you win any of those four? So they're still in all these tournaments. They're still healthy. They've got, all the players coming in. Everyone's coming back from injury. They've got good things going for them right now.
How many more fingers you got there, Beta?
That's 4. That's it. I got no more.
How many trophies can we? Look, I agree with you at that point, because LAFC have there's a little bit of a stigma attached because they kept getting to finals and losing them, which is very unfair. Because look, those finals are disappointing, but when we're all there experiencing them, I go, this is pretty cool. This place is hopping. We're at MLS Cup. We're at CONCACAF Champions League /Cup final. It is very cool, but you've definitely got to get that one. Mm-hmm. So LAFC the problem is they're still everything's in front of them. Everything, Supporter Shield, MLS Cup, where they're going to be possibly the favorite coming out of the West. Mm-hmm. US Open Cup, 2 wins away. Yeah. 3 wins away from the CONCACAF Champions League, which they made I forgot to say. The Leagues Cup, they made the quarterfinals last year. We're up on Monterrey and ended up losing that game. So now they look to top it, and we'll get into that opponent here first. But let's stick with the game really quickly and the debut of Olivier Giroud. I wonder if the game stayed 2-1, because we were there and we were upstairs and we're saying, do you put him in here because he's going to be rusty? And he was. When he came into the game, you could see he's still getting his bearings, which is to be, and I want to ask you about that. But you have to find your way around. So he was able to let me see. Well, he was able to log what was
20 minutes or so?
20 minutes, which was a good chunk. And look, seeing how he played, just not only that it's his debut, but it's this high-profile debut where he's coming in and running out there, and all eyes are on him. And what do you think? He doesn't want to disappoint everyone. He wants to go and score a goal, but obviously goals don't just come like that. Whether it was Gareth Bale, Giorgio Chiellini, everyone, when they have that first game after a big move, it's going to be a transition.
My question for you, for the fans, when was his last competitive game, right? So training, and I've mentioned this before, training is different than game fit, right? The flow, the confidence of being in a game, 90 minutes fit every week, every Saturday. It's different than, look, he had a busy last year with AC Milan, with France, finishing up. I'm sure he took time off, spent time with his family before the move to LAFC. And so once he gets here, how much is he doing? Obviously, he's training, he's meeting everybody, he's getting situated still, but he hasn't played in a real game yet. So he should be rusty, right? You don't expect him to come in and score a hat trick in 20 minutes. No, thankfully, the game wasn't super close at the time. He was able to come in. I'm sure his family was there. Everyone was thrilled to see him make his debut, but he's only going to get better every game after that. He's going to get more and more minutes. He's going to get confidence with the team and that camaraderie with whoever. It's Bogusz or Oliveira or Denny. Like, he's going to get familiar with those guys and their movements, and then he's going to get fit and confident with the team, and then he's going to be flying.
Kai Kamara did not come into that game. And, when you look at um, what he's going to have to deal with, he was so positive. I saw him on the sideline. He gave me a big hug because this is going to probably dent into his playing time, but he is still there to do whatever is required. And he was there with alongside Olivier, getting him hyped for this. I just want to point that out because I thought it was really cool. But if it was 2-1, I would imagine if it goes 2-1 and we're in the 85th minute, I think Giroud comes in, but he doesn't play 20 minutes. He might play 5 or 10, or maybe he doesn't. If it's, because every coach has a plan to incorporate these guys. But plan number one, and this is what we get back to LAFC, when they're in a tournament, they're in it to win it, is to get through this tournament. So what do you think? If let's say hypothetically it was 2-1.
If it was hypothetical, if it was 2-1, I still think you put in Giroud, maybe a little bit later. I think if it's 2-2, you're seeing Kai Kamara. Like, the guy has been playing so well. He's been on such a good rhythm. If it was 2-2 before Giroud comes on, I think you're going to put Kamara in. They want to win. This is do or die, right? Regular season, sure, throw him in. It's okay. But playoffs, if you put him in and you lose, a lot of fans are going to be upset that you kind of wasted this opportunity to give him a debut. And I don't think Giroud is going to be one to throw a fit if he didn't play. I think he wants to win. He's a competitor. At the end of the day, we're all competitors. In order to be a professional athlete, you have to have that competitive drive. And he would understand, look, I'm not fully in rhythm, fit, all this stuff, whatever, no problem. Let's win this game. Let's play. And the next game I'll play. So hypothetically speaking.
Yeah, that's a great point because, look, Kai Kamara has really earned it. And that's a nice wrinkle. And these guys love each other. You go to training, you can see it. And that's why they're being so successful. They're all in it. You don't see anyone pouting when they don't play. I can't really say that convincingly, as I'm not in on the inner circle. I know players want to play, and if guys aren't playing, I'm sure there's a process that they go through there. But I think, horses for courses. Like you said, if it's 2-2, Steve Cherundolo will probably say, I want to use Giroud. I think Kai would be better in this. And that's going to mess opponents up because they've built this bench. We've talked about it all year, Beta. They have built this bench, and it says Giroud will work here, even though it's Olivier Giroud. Steve Cherundolo is not afraid to make those tough decisions. I think we have learned that over these 2 and almost 3 seasons. That's a really nice ace up the sleeve.
That's what he gets paid the big bucks for. So he's got to make those tough decisions. We got to talk about hypotheticals. He's got to make those tough decisions. So
we could talk about his performance. It was like sometimes he was just, it's hard to judge that, right? It's just about getting those minutes.
Yeah, and the game's over, right? It's different if it were a tie game, maybe you'd see him make a little harder of runs and put in a little extra effort. It looked like he was, pretty casual, relaxed out there. It's different. Again, competitor, you want to come in, you want to help your team win. And when the game is already won, you're just like, okay, I'm going to come out here, take some nice pictures with the family afterwards, have the jersey on, get a little sweat. So no big deal. He was having fun.
Giroud takes a lot of photos with fans. He's really giving in that way. And I was a little surprised he's played this soon because he didn't play a lot at the Euros, but he was on that French squad. And I thought he really needed to probably recharge the batteries. You're talking about his season with Milan. I thought he came here sooner than I thought, and he wanted to get back into it. I think that says a lot. He wants to play. He wants to move on to this next stage of his life. I saw he took his family to Universal Studios, so I think everyone's excited about being in LA. I think he's all in on the city, which is tremendous. And I'll leave it at this. Thank goodness they've advanced in these tournaments because we have all these players that want to play, and now you still have a chance to bring in Eric Dueñas and Eddie Segura because let's say they got knocked out to Austin, or they didn't get out of the groups. You have these guys training all the time. That can't be good for the psyche or whatever. It's good that they have games in front of them and plenty of them.
100%. It's good that they have all these games because, a guy like Kai Kamara, who's been playing well, he's going to see his minutes diminish. So more opportunities for him to continue to play. So that's good.
All right. So we now come to the show where we say, bring on the Sounders. Bring them on. And I know people are like maybe Sounders fatigue because we're going to have this game on the 17th, and then we'll have another game on the 28th in Seattle. And some people we want Leagues Cup. I think everyone wants to see a game against Liga MX. It could have been Pumas. I called that game. Pumas had the foot on the pedal. They had a goal disallowed and Sounders took over. But this is going to be tricky because you want to win this game. They're both tournament games. You want to win the Open Cup. LAFC's already won a game in Seattle. The law of averages say that people don't just go up there and win game after game after game. Let's talk about, both of them. This is a tough bill. If at the end of this, LAFC says they beat the Sounders at their place in the playoffs last season. There's no way, right, Beta? They're not going to win both these games.
Law of averages, you're right, says no way. But it's LAFC. You can't count them out. You can't. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of games and short succession. But we'll see. We'll see which one they take priority over. Which that's going to be the key for Steve Toronto and the staff. Which game do they really want to focus, put their starters in? Which game can they afford to rotate a bit?
Put that finger up again. You got to win that one trophy. This is where it comes down to.
One trophy. Regular season, you got some games afterwards. Leagues Cup or Opens Cup, do or die. So we'll see.
Some people asked me last night, which one would you prefer to win? I go, don't ask me that. But I think because we're talking about a semifinal at the Open Cup, I think that's the one. And that's going to be played at Starfire, natural surface, I think it's natural surface, 5,000 seats. I think it's because it's a semifinal. But the Leagues Cup, if you get to the semifinal, everything is there. You get that ticket.
Tough. It's tough.
You want me to ask you that question, or you don't want to?
Look, I think I kind of agree with you, right? Like I'm going, and the fact that they've already won Supporters Shield twice helps make that decision, right? You can say, okay, we don't need to win Supporters Shield again. We want to have a home playoff game. We want to be one of the top 4 seeds, but we don't need to be Supporters Shield again and get into Champions League that way. I think they're going to put priority on Leagues Cup and Opens Cup. And if Open Cup, they're already in the semifinals, one game to the finals, you've got to put that as the priority. So, that's what I would go with.
I just think it's like science fiction to think, hey, LAFC won 4 straight at Lumen Field.
No, it sounds crazy.
It sounds crazy.
Sounds crazy, but it's possible. It's LAFC.
More important. So Sounders have won 9 of 11. They've been good. And they beat up the Galaxy in this tournament. They beat up Pumas.
They crushed them. Very good Pumas team. Crushed them. Man, they're on a roll. They're on a roll.
LAFC's been good against familiar opponents in this tournament, so that is good. I did call that Pumas game, and maybe the Leagues Cup, the attendance. I thought the attendance has been okay because you can't really pack a stadium when you announce a game 3 days before. And I think it was like 15,000 at LAFC, which is I think you have to be happy about that.
For sure.
And they'll certainly ramp that up as it goes up towards the tournament. But Seattle, they had like a walk-up crowd. I think they had 30K for that Pumas game, so they're going to have a big one Saturday night. Tune in, MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. If you're a supporter and you're going to get up there, you know the protocol of marching to the match there. But this is going to feel. I think, certainly the people at MLS are going to be pumped. This is a game that has all the trimmings.
When you have short notice like that, 2-3 day notice, when it's the weekday, okay, you kind of get a pass on both. But now it's the weekend, so it's going to be pretty packed. I'm excited to watch it. It's going to be a fun game.
I know the people at Seattle are pumped to face LAFC for the reasons we just mentioned about winning these last 2 games.
Time for them, right? They can't wait.
LAFC could bury this team if they could win that. I think if you win the quarterfinal here, the semifinal, you're looking at a Sounders team that's probably going, we can't beat these guys. So
yeah, we'll see.
So let's wrap it up here quickly. The Leagues Cup logistics. I don't know if that was a good header, but just looking at the tournament and I was watching there's 7 round of 16 games on Tuesday night. There were 6 Liga MX teams, 5 after Pumas were eliminated. Toluca lost to the Rapids. Tigres lost to New York City FC. Club America were losing to St. Louis City, and they were able to pop it out. By the way, Brian Rodriguez scored a goal, former LAFC. Diego Rossi scored 2 goals. I think he's the top scorer with Kike Oliveira. So all these Uruguayans are playing great football right now. So Liga MX, I was there. We saw Juarez lose. I was in the press area, and I couldn't believe it because I'm MLS fanboy. I was like pulling for the Mexican teams. I go, we need you. If America got knocked out, you have 7 MLS teams in the final 8. No bueno, Beta.
No bueno indeed. It's been fun to watch. We talked about it in the past. When the Mexican teams have to come play here, they have a very good fan base already in the U.S. So it's fun to watch. They have a big crowd supporting their teams. But if MLS teams go to Mexico, it would be 90% to 10% MLS team surviving. So it's good to see. It makes it a little bit more fair right now. But again, you still have to play the game. These are good teams you're playing against, and you still have to win. So it's good to see. It's refreshing. It's not just your top teams in MLS. A team like the Rapids, who I saw over the weekend, and I've been watching their games. They're looking good in this tournament, right? They've played, 3 Mexican teams now, 3 in a row they've beaten. They look good. The only team they lost to was an MLS team at Portland, where they didn't have a good showing, but they're doing well right now. So it's fun to see MLS teams doing well against League MX teams, regardless of who it is.
Well, I was going to say this. If LAFC win at the Sounders and Club America beats Colorado at Dignity Health Sports Park, the semifinal will be Club America versus LAFC at the Galaxy's Field, which would be amazing. But I got to tell you, man, I think the Rapids are going to win that game. So it could be LAFC versus the Rapids at BMO, which is going to be terrible. But, man, Club America, all the fans I talk to, they want Liga MX teams. This is the appeal. And I know the MLS, the league, and the Leagues Cup, and Liga MX without question want that matchup. That would be memorable, to say the least. It would be the first Club America matchup since the Miguel Herrera Razov 2020 CONCACAF Champions League game in Orlando. So bring it on. I hope we get to see that.
I hope so too. That'll be fun.
Well, a lot of fun stuff, Beta. We'll get back here next week, and we'll hopefully talk about semifinals in Leagues Cup and preview the semifinal of the Open Cup. And why not? Maybe this Club America matchup. Who knows?
I can't wait to watch these games. There's some good matchups that I'll be tuning into. So I can't wait to talk about it afterwards.
Stephen Beitashour joining us on Inside LAFC podcast. We will be back with special guest Julien Laurens of ESPN FC and the Gab and Jules podcast, which has huge numbers. We will talk about the French players that are here at LAFC and the impact they're having here and across the pond. Inside LAFC podcast is presented by Freeway Insurance, driving savings. We are back here on Inside LAFC podcast, and we are thrilled to be joined by Julien Laurens, who works for ESPN. I got to work with you at ESPN FC, Julien. It's great to see your star rising.
Oh,
and you look like $1 million.
Oh, thank you so much, man. You too. We don't grow old. That's what we do,
If you say so, I appreciate that. Very nice. I got you cleared by a few years, so we can't really put us in the same category, but much appreciated.
We're still part of the same team, man. Don't worry.
There it is. Hey, congratulations, by the way, on all the success for France. I mean, it must be nice to be able to cover your country, and they're making World Cup finals, World Cup Euro semifinals, and it brings us back together to talk about these players as well. I also want to mention that Gab and Jules podcast is back. You took a little tiny summer hiatus, so we can see that where all podcasts are available.
Exactly. Yeah. Today we dropped the first one of the season, or it's about to drop very soon now, wherever you get your podcast. So again, me and Gab just talking about European football, but even more globally, like all football all around the world.
Most people probably know about it, that watch the sport, but check it out. Jules is great. Gab obviously is a fantastic, and they talk about the world of football. We're going to focus on the French game because that is your love, your passion, and where it all started. And I'm curious, when Hugo Lloris arrived at LAFC, it was a big news story, but it fit the profile of maybe a player coming to MLS. When you heard that Olivier Giroud was coming here, this may have been a little more bombastic. What was your reaction?
I wasn't surprised, Max, to be honest. I mean, Olivier and I have been friends for a very long time now, since he joined Arsenal in 2012, I think the summer 2012. And for the last few years, regularly in our conversations, MLS and moving to the US for him and the family just came back in the conversation. And so I knew that this was something that was his aim, that at some point would happen. When I wasn't sure, I don't think Olivier was sure either. I think he just, he knew that at some point it would feel like the right time to leave Europe and move to the US. His 4 children are now at a good age to make that move, that transition. I think his wife Jen was also ready for something new and just a new adventure. And I think he was ready. I know he's obviously getting older, and his birthday is next month at the end of September, and he will be 38 years old. So I know this is more towards the end of his career than the beginning, but he felt like there was one more thing he wanted to experience in football, and that was football in the US. That was MLS. That was living in the US for him and the family. And I think he felt ready for it. The summer before, we had a long chat about it, and I think he felt that maybe one more year in Milan with the Euros in Germany in 2024, which we knew was going to be his last competition for France, felt right. But he could have gone to MLS a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. For the last 5 years or 6 years, really, every summer could have been the moment for him to go. He just felt that this summer after the Euros would be perfect, and he's super happy to join not just LAFC, but also to make that step towards the US and spending some time there.
Do you ever get out to LA, Julien?
I would. Please invite me. I would love to. I've never been, and I just cannot wait.
Consider it done. And by the way, Olivier's already making the runs at the theme parks to come here, Universal, Disney. So we'll get your Mickey Mouse ears. You'll get all ready. We'll get you at the game. It'll be fantastic.
Perfect.
You say he's turning 38. Hugo's turning 38, and I think that would scare some people. But I watch a lot of this sport, and it's changing. And particularly these guys at 38, they're different than what 38-year-olds were like a decade ago or so. Knowing how his commitment and still playing for France, what kind of player he is at 38, and what he can still provide.
I mean, first of all, Olivier is a freak of nature physically. And it's not just him. He's got 3 brothers. There are 4 boys in the Giroud family. All of them are just built the same and just have like this incredible body. So some are his older brothers. They're like they just don't put on weight. They don't put on fat. They are all so lean and so fit and everything. So I think genetically at the start, like Giroud's dad and granddad and great granddad, whatever. I think there's good genes already there. More seriously, he's always, maybe because his career started a little bit later than others. If you think about, I don't know, Thierry Henry or Kylian Mbappe and those kind of guys who from a very young age made their debut for first team football in the top flight at 16, 17, 18, Griezmann in Spain, all those guys. For Olivier, it's been different because it was just a slow start. He had to go through lower leagues. So really, his let's say like full big career only started when he was already 23, 24. So those years there between 17 and 23, of course he was training every day, but didn't have the kind of like heavy weight on his body and work rate and all of that. There may be others who've gone to academy and were already playing first team football at the age of 18, 19, 20, 21, etc. Maybe have felt. So I think his body is just younger for that to start, like his football body is younger for that. Then there's the brain. He's obviously somebody really smart who's always looked after himself in what he eats, in all the recovery, all the training, everything. And he's really like, when we say, oh, your body is a temple. I know, Max, your body is a temple. But for him, for you, I'm not sure if it's fully true. For him, it's fully true. And don't forget as well, one of his brothers is also like a fitness coach, like a food specialist for what you eat as a like professional athlete. So he's got his brother helping him as well to make sure that even now 37, even 36, 37, 38, basically he has the body of when he was 28, 29. And on top of that, if you add the experience of how to manage his own body, his own game time, training, etc., recovery, I think I agree with you. I know he's 38, and that might bring a bit of skepticism maybe from some of the LAFC fans. I promise you, he's got the body of a 30-year-old.
My body is a temple, Julien, but church is not in session 5 days of the 7 days. So just keep that in mind. We have a little wiggle room.
Love that.
French football is fascinating. It was late to winning a World Cup. They got it with Zidane and Deschamps, and then Thierry Henry a little later in 1998. They made a final in 2006. And that was like the golden era. And then this group comes around and wins it in 2018, and then makes a final in 2022, a final that many people would say was the best World Cup final we've ever seen against Argentina. The French public, I can't imagine they would have expected it so good. That was a golden generation with Zidane and much, but this group has to be held in such esteem, in particular with Giroud and Hugo Lloris. If you can tell me a little bit about their legacy, how they are viewed by the French public because of what they did, particularly with the national team, but also what they have been able to do at the club level.
Yeah, two French legends, there's no doubt. And I think two who really embody what this generation was about. You're right. I think 98 is the most talented generation, maybe with the Platini generation of the 80s that we've had in terms of pure talent. Because it's hard to do better than, I don't know, Zidane and Thierry Henry and David, those kind of guys in the same team. Yes, of course, there's Kylian and there's a Pogba, for example, or a Conte, but I think this team was more of a team and of a collective, more pragmatic maybe than 98 or 2000. Deschamps being a more defensive-minded coach anyway. But I think Olivier, in terms of what Olivier can bring to a team collectively, just embodies that. He's a team player, first and foremost. And that's what this team was about. Of course, you had one or two incredible talents, especially Pogba and Mbappe, let's say. But the likes of Griezmann and Kanté and Giroud and Matuidi, for example, or Rabiot even a bit later, all those guys were team players first. And that's what Olivier is about. And Olivier has been a team player all his life, which is very interesting for a striker, for a selfish striker who just scores goals all the time, everywhere he's been. He's been a team player first and foremost. And that has made him a legend. I think people recognized that maybe he was not as talented as Kylian or Thierry, but not many players have been in the history of French football anyway. But he brought something so special to a team, like I said, teamwork and work ethic, and also all those goals in a profile that not many teams have had in generation after generation. I think was very special. And for Hugo, both of them are super smart, but Hugo is maybe the smartest player I've ever come across, that I've ever known. And I was lucky enough to be really close to him too before he moved to the US. So the smartest, and a captain who's like a proper captain, who's a real leader, who's a great ambassador to your team or your club or your country, whatever, who speaks well, who presents so well, who's respectful, who everybody loves. There's just not one to say one bad word about Hugo Lloris. So two legends for different reasons, different positions, of course, and two guys who have brought so much to French football in general.
I want to share you a story about Hugo that opened our eyes here, and I hope it's okay. We have one of our video guys who cut and edit and do all the stuff for us. They're on the road. Hugo Lloris, they went to dinner, a fine establishment. I think they were in Seattle or somewhere. And he was there. Hugo grabbed him and goes, "Why don't you come have dinner with us?" Sat there, picked up his dinner, had a conversation. I don't know if they shared wine or whatever, but it was I heard this story and I couldn't believe it because the players are here, and he saw Joe and he said, "Come, you can join with us. We don't want to leave you behind." And that's going to always stay with me. And Hugo's been an absolute delight. There was some Tottenham Hotspur fans go, do you think he'd say something nice to my girlfriend? And I was embarrassed. I go, "Hugo, would you do this?" He grabbed the phone out of my hand. He goes, "What is her name?" Said it. "Happy birthday." Gave me back the phone before I even asked.
He's done that to me so many times, Max. I promise you. He's just a gem of a guy. And again, I know I'm biased because again we've known each other for a very long time. We've covered, like, I've covered the national team for so long, where he was the captain, so we would see each other all the time, almost like traveling with, when you travel with the team, you see the boys, etc., etc. So I know I'm not very objective, but I promise you, it's just an incredible guy to have in a dressing room, in a team. For a franchise like LAFC, to have somebody like him, and of course I would have loved them to be there even earlier in the career, just for you guys to have more time with them, Olivier and Hugo. It's just the way it happens, but they are fantastic on and off the pitch.
Well, we can't wait to get immersed in Olivier Giroud based on everything we have seen. Tough question: Lloris or Barthez? He's like,
for me, Lloris every day. No, I understand. And it's hard, as you know, to compare generations too. There will always be people who prefer that 98 generation more, who would like the 2018 one, depending on your age, depending on the way you see football. But I know Fabien well, and Fabien was an amazing goalkeeper, a great guy. But I've always been closer to Hugo. So for me, Hugo, and again, let's not forget that when Hugo Lloris arrived with the national team, it was chaos for us. Remember the 2010 World Cup with the players going on strike, the Domenech fiasco. 2012 wasn't much greater with Laurent Blanc, and then Deschamps arrived in the summer 2012, and Hugo was such a massive part, and Olivier as well, in that rebuilding process to make us great again. And so just for that, and having witnessing that journey, having covering that journey with them, was just an amazing experience. So I would always pick, I guess, more of that generation than the earliest generations.
I think I'm so glad I asked that, because we forgot about that era. People forget that the French, between those two incredible eras, it was difficult. And 2010 was a great example. We keep hearing Antoine Griezmann wants to come to MLS. Look at the smile. And I know you speak to these players. Does he talk about coming here? You mentioned Giroud talked about coming here. What has Griezmann said about coming to MLS?
Yeah, I mean, he's very open about it. And again, people need to know that American culture, in France especially, more than in England, for example, where I live now, but certainly, especially in Paris where I grew up, but also in other places in France, American culture is very strong, whether it's from the music, from American sports, American football, the NBA, NHL, MLB, whatever you want, is very strong. And if you're someone like even me, before working for ESPN and one day maybe moving to the US, I would love to live in the US. I would literally love it if my boss at ESPN said, listen, we need you in LA, come here, do this. I would absolutely love it. I know. So I can understand.
I got a guest room for you, Julien. We have a guest room for you.
Man. I can cook for you too. You know, like we can make it work together. It's brilliant. So I relate to that. And for Antoine, it's the same. He has the American culture in him massive, more than people really believe and realize. And I remember before Euro 2016 for ESPN, I was doing a big interview with Paul Pogba. And in Clairefontaine, where the French HQ is, we were in this little room, and the competition started in like 3 days later, and that was the NBA finals at the time. And Paul and I were talking, and at some point, who put his head through the door? Griezmann and Pogba are like brothers. We have a little chat, and then Griezmann said to me and Pogba, said, "Did you watch the game last night?" And I said, like, "Oh man, I fell asleep like halfway through the first quarter. I could not hold on." Paul was like, "Oh, I fell asleep at halftime." Griezmann was like, "I watched the whole game. It was amazing. I could not go to bed." The guy stays up at night 3 days before Euros, where he was, by the way, outstanding, to watch the NBA finals. This is how much American culture is in him. So of course he would love to live in the US. Of course he would love to play in MLS. Again, don't forget, and this is no offense to MLS or American soccer fans over there. I think he just feels right now there's still a bit of time left for him in Europe at Atletico Madrid. That might be 1 year, maybe two. He's obviously a bit younger than Hugo and Olivier at 33 years old. But at some point, there's no doubt he will make the switch. Where will he go? I don't know. I guess the West Coast, because for us, West Coast, I mean, it feels special to go and play in LA, to live in LA, all of that feels special. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was trying to go West as well. I give him, really, but that's not him telling me. This is just me and my assessment. I give him 2 more years in Europe. And I think in 2 years, in the summer 2026, after the World Cup in the US, he'll probably be ready to make the switch and come over.
He's going to need those Giroud brothers to keep him in tip-top shape and body like a temple, though, okay?
Yeah, but he's a guy like that, too. He's a guy like that, too. And Erika, his wife, is very good, too, for keeping him in shape. You know, the food is great, the lifestyle that they have, they're very disciplined. She's a bit of a fitness freak as well. So I've got no doubt, even for Griezmann, that he's going to grow old well and will still be able to get going at 37, 38, 39.
We're a patient bunch here. And Atletico Madrid look amazing. And he could watch the NBA starting at 4 o'clock East Coast games. I
know, exactly. For him, it'd be even better. And also, he watches like baseball, American football. He watches everything. So it'd be perfect. But no, really, more seriously, this American culture kind of mindset is very strong in a lot of people in France and a lot of the players too. And I'm not surprised at all that Hugo has made the switch, that Olivier has gone over, and Antoine will follow up very soon.
I think it's great you said that, because Americans, when they visit France are a little intimidated, but I remember I've been there twice recently, and I had great conversations, and the American culture comes up, and that opens it up. And when we talk about sports and music and all that, so American tourists to France spark up a conversation. Your culture is respected there, and I also want to say we got to be careful basketball wise. You almost got us twice in the Olympics, in the men and the women.
Come on,
really, this Wembanyama dropping 40 points here. It's crazy.
I know, man. And now Alexa and Riza Shea being the number 2 and number 1 in the draft in June. So we had 2 number 1s back to back in the draft, which feels very special. So
your time is coming.
But again, like this American culture side, even for that generation, like Wemby and Sarr, Riza Shea and all the others, it's that it's that kind of heritage. And there's a lot of younger generation back home, whether they play basketball or football, soccer, whatever they want to do, or just studying, living in the US, making music, everything. That there's a massive appeal for them to move over. So I know it's not easy to just drop everything you have in France to go and move to the US. You need the right context for it. But yeah, there's a lot of that, and for players, it's just very similar.
That makes a lot of sense, that the basketball culture and the French are right at the front of it. We love our French players here. Denis Bouanga, French-born. He represents Gabon. Obviously, Giroud, Lloris. And Maxime Chanot, he represents Luxembourg. But you worked with him as well this summer?
Yeah, he was on radio with me, on French radio during the Euros. He was really good. I mean, he's a very smart guy. He's a lovely guy. And I guess, like we were saying, preparing for the show, I think there's a lot of room for improvement in terms of MLS exposure in France. People watching on television, keeping very interested. There's an interest, and there's people who love MLS, of course, but it can grow much bigger, I think, much quicker. And the fact that Lloris, Giroud are there, maybe Griezmann one day, maybe others would follow, great. The French guy already there, Wilfried Nancy, for example, who nobody really had heard of before he won with Columbus Crew. This is also helping. There's a big interview in him in L'Equipe or in L'Equipe magazine, in France Football, in Le Paris, so this is great. So I feel like MLS is getting there and growing in France. I don't think France, compared to England, for example, was a key market at the beginning, maybe, but now it's probably becoming a bigger market for MLS. So this is all good, certainly in the right direction.
We have to be patient, but I think this group of players, these coaches, can open things up a little bit. We'll have to get you some LAFC gear. You can walk around town and maybe people ask questions.
I'm not sure. You know what? I'm going to wear it because my wife, who works for Arsenal, was obviously over this summer for the preseason tour, and she got us caps and shirt for me and our children, all of that. So we LAFC like full, so.
Very nice to hear. And we appreciate you speaking the gospel on our behalf. And we welcome the French public here anytime to see these LAFC games.
I can't wait to go. Olivier said already, come over. I kind of collect shirts a little bit that players have worn. He promised me one of his LAFC shirts. So it should be there in somewhere in the collection, I hope, very soon. But yeah, I need to come over and watch this.
It's a date. Julien Laurens, ESPN FC contributor. You can see him there. He works in Europe as well, and you can hear him on the Gab and Jules podcast. Maybe if we keep this going, it's the Jules and Gab podcast. They both sound very good. But we'll be listening.
Thank you, man. And when I'm coming to LA, I'll let you know, and we can do the same show inside LAFC, but in together in person.
Excellent. We look forward to that. Julien Laurens, lovely and informative, joining us here, and we appreciate the time. And that's all the time we have. We'll be back again next week to recap Leagues Cup quarterfinals. More great guests. Until then, this is Max Bretos. So long, everybody.